All right. Let's bring it back. All right, how was that? Is it okay? Work? Yeah. That's good. There's a question. I'm sorry, I can't hear the question.
Well, my name is George, according to the muscle test.
Uh-huh. And you wonder why, yes. Okay, a couple things can be going on. One is eye position. Your head has to be up, not cocked down looking straight. That's why your chin has to be parallel to the ground and your eyes are focused down during the testing. If that's happening, then you will be more associated, more emotionally engaged in what's happening when you're talking. When you say something is true, there'll be a stronger sense of reaction in your physical body, and that's what causes the muscle testing to work. It isn't a mystical experience. It's a biological, neurological experience. It's really a very cheap biofeedback machine that you carry around connected to you, your physical body. So used properly, it will work fine. The other possibilities, and I don't have time to discuss them right now in terms of the anomalies, sometimes people will test weak to everything. There's a specific reason for that, and it turns out that's an easy correction. Sometimes they'll test strong to everything, no matter where their eyes are looking. And if you're strong to everything, that's another condition in the body that's happening at the time, and there's a corrective procedure for that. But even here, you know, I bet you there 90+% of you had the experience as you normally would, and a small percentage may need some kind of tweaking, in other words, to make it work really well. If you've never experienced muscle testing before, sometimes it can just be plain surprising. You know, it worked. What's that about? Because consciously you walk around thinking you're in control of your body and your behaviors and your responses and all of that, and the fact is mostly you're not. Mostly you have your subconscious mind running the program, both behaviorally and biologically, and you're just not used to accessing it and experiencing it consciously. So muscle testing is a simple way to do that. So, on we go. Not only do you have two minds, you have two hemispheres of the brain, and this is one of the key pieces also associated with the change process. And I'm going to give you just a quick course, Hemispheres 101 here, so we can move along. Most of you are familiar with the basic concept of brain dominance theory. You have a left brain and a right brain, a left hemisphere and right hemisphere. The left side of your brain is really primary center for logic, linear thinking. It's the primary speech center, so that's where your words come from. It tends to be analytical. It breaks things down into parts rather than putting them together, and it just loves the order and control of things. That's the part of you that thinks it's really good to get to work on time and to get your jobs done on time and can balance your checkbook and all those things that are a function of, you know, ordinary life. So it's a good thing we have that hemisphere. But it's not the hemisphere you have much fun, I notice. So you want to take into consideration the right brain, the right hemisphere. It's where your emotions are. It's where pictures are made in your head instead of words. It tends to synthesize rather than analyze. It puts things together rather than breaks them apart. And it tends to be the one that enjoys that feeling of being spontaneous and free. So when the weather's great and you could go do something really fun, that's the part that argues, let's go. And the other side says, no, we've got to get our work done first. So sometimes they compete, in fact, almost always, for your attention. And control of your system, by the way. The arrows down at the bottom represent this crossover relationship between the hemispheres of the brain and the side of the body that they control. For instance, the left hemisphere of the brain controls motor functions on the right side of the body, and vice versa. The right hemisphere controls them on the left. Now, there's a word down at the bottom, or two words down at the bottom. Corpus callosum is a bundle of nerve fibers. They're like, think of them as fiber optic links, millions of them, part of a very sophisticated commissure system that is a communication pathway between the left and the right hemisphere. On a good day, when both hemispheres are talking to each other, you're getting a lot of crosstalk going. That communication system is wide open. So it's really a bridge between the hemispheres. And when things aren't going so well, or you get stressed, as Bruce was talking about, the fight or flight response, what typically happens here is that commissure system, that corpus callosum, shuts down, like it becomes a barricade rather than a bridge to crosstalk. And so you will go into a favored hemisphere to deal with a given situation. It's not that people are all left brain or right brain. The research was very clear about that, but the pop culture didn't get that part. It's much easier to write about, oh, what are you, left brain or right brain? Well, guess what? You got two hemispheres and you're both. The issue is, in a given situation, if you learn to over-identify with the qualities and attributes of one hemisphere versus the other, you will do that habitually until that's changed. The ideal circumstance, obviously, is to have both hemispheres working all the time, to be in a state I call the whole brain state, because then you have all the qualities and attributes available to deal with almost any situation. You don't automatically go into protection in a situation unless it's warranted, and then you can go there, because sometimes fight or flight's a good thing. You know, you got to get out of there, get the blood out of the viscera, get it to the limbs, and get out of Dodge. So it's all right to have that happen, but you want to be able to control it. You want to be able to perceive your reality through both hemispheres at the same time. And this little tidbit will come up in a little while, so I just wanted you to have a working reminder about it. The other thing is, the mind is not the brain. This is a very important concept. Bruce alludes to it all the time because he talks about it's about energy. I mean, in the final analysis, the physicists tell us it's all energy. So you've got a whole bunch of people here and here are complementary healers, and you say, well, do you do energy work? Show me something that isn't energy work. Allopathic medicine is energy work. What do you think the pills are? It's all molecules vibrating at some frequency. You're just ingesting them or injecting them or doing something, but it's all energy work in that sense. You can't not do energy work. Everything's energy. So remember that mind can really be described more aptly than calling it the brain as photons of light held in an electromagnetic field. We're talking about moving energy here. That's what healing's about. That's what change is about. That's what the mind is about. The brain is the gray matter inside your cranium. It's like the CPU chip in a computer. It's the physical thing that you can crack open your cranium and you got this thing in there, but that's not the mind. That's just the brain. That's a different deal altogether. It may be the central processing unit, the place where the energy patterns interpenetrate, but you know it's not even limited to the brain. Those of you who know about the energy field in general know that mind is not a function of just a connection to the brain part. There's some really important, long-standing myths about change that I need to address before I demonstrate what I want to show you. And that is, myth number one, if you've had a limiting belief for a long time, it'll take a long time to change it. Boy, that's a common one. I got so many people say, oh, it's so deeply embedded, Rob, you know, I've had this belief for 35 years, and it's just ingrained, and use all these anthropomorphic terms about how deeply it's embedded in your brain. You know, well, how deep could it be? You know, it's how many centimeters in there? You can get your finger in there and get one of the deepest ones. It's not like it's miles deep. What's that about? But we keep characterizing it in a way that makes belief change difficult. If you look at the reality of it, if it's photons of light held in an electromagnetic field, that's a different story. It isn't about deep. Ugh. All right. Anyway, most of the time, changing subconscious beliefs is more like changing a document in a computer. The computer is photons of light held in an electromagnetic field. It's an energy phenomenon. You can't go into your computer and dig in there. How deep can you get into the hard drive? I mean, it's a little chip. It's the same concept, and we've really made it hard. It doesn't take any longer to change a document that's been in there for 30 years as it does it's been in there for 30 minutes. And that's mostly true with belief systems people have carried around for years and years. I've just watched this happen in private practice over and over again, and in the classes I teach, people will say, oh, I've had this belief for 50 years. I mean, it's just remarkable, just remarkable. I had one quick story about that. A psychiatrist is using a Psych-K in Denver. He had taken the classes, and he had, one of his patients was agoraphobic. You're familiar with agoraphobia? It's a fear of being out in the marketplace in open places and so on. She'd had this agoraphobia since she was about, since she was a teenager, because she'd had it for over 50 years, and she was 60 plus years old. And it turns out it was an event that occurred in the eastern plains of Colorado. Her mother had taken her on a trip, and she was misbehaving, and so the mom said, you know, if you don't get your act together pretty soon, you're going to get out of the car and I'm leaving you. You know, today we'd be all traumatized by that, but back in those days, that's what your parents did. That's how they stayed in control. So the woman actually did stop the car because the kid kept misbehaving, put the child out, and she drove down the road. Well, not very far, but far enough to scare this little kid. And so she comes back, picks up the girl's in tears, piles her in the car, and they take off. Well, didn't take long before the little girl started to show these signs of fear of going out into open places. There are many places that are quite as open as the eastern plains of Colorado.